Redditors who came into great wealth and did not lose it in a few years. How did you make the money last? Not me, alas, but I remember reading an AMA a while back from a Redditor who won the lottery. I think the jackpot was $30 million, and he got maybe $17 million. He was only in his early 20s, too. He was basically a checklist for how to behave if you win the lottery. He paid off all his debts, had some fun spending some of it, then got a financial advisor who gives him an allowance of something like $90,000 a year. The rest of the money is invested. Anytime he's in danger of exceeding his allowance, his advisor calls and gives him crap. His advisor calls and gives him crap. Mayo, I should get an advisor too. Simple living plus investing in real estate and stocks. Inherited about $400k back in 2011. Paid off student loans. Spent $17k on a reliable Honda Civic. Bought a $100k 2-bedroom condo. Went on one really nice vacation, then put the rest into stocks and retirement accounts. I live in the modest Midwest and I'm a naturally frugal person. But I can't tell you how cheap it is to live when you don't have a mortgage and car payment. With those first 2 steps down, I can put about half my salary into savings and I am well on my way towards financial freedom. I can't tell you how cheap it is to live when you don't have a mortgage and car payment. This is so true. My parents lived frugally and paid off their house very quickly. My dad was without steady employment for about 5 years, but since they didn't have a mortgage or car payments, they were able to survive on very little. I inherited a significant amount of money when my uncle died a few years ago. It was a complete surprise, and I felt very uncomfortable about accepting so much money when I really hadn't done anything to earn it. I immediately dumped all of it into a retirement account and index funds, and honestly I don't even think about it. Dude, me too. Get yourself a fiduciary. If you're younger than 35-40, invest in moderate high risk. Lower the risk over time until retirement. Pull out a bit for a safety net, but keep your job, which I'm sure you're doing. Maximize your 401k and Roth IRA. I knew about an investment account my dad set up for me when I turned 18. Every quarter we would go over the investments. It started at $150k when I first learned about it. When I graduated it was $200k, and that's after paying for school. I realized what it could be in another 10 years and decided to never touch it. My now wife and I live way below our means and we are extremely happy. We put $20k in the account each year, even after maxing $401k. My dad made a point to me by creating an Excel spreadsheet. He showed me if I saved $10k how much it would become when I turned 60. Then did it with $15k, $25k act. It's amazing what $1 today will be in 30 years if you leave it in investments. We did take out money to pay for a wedding, $10k, and a down payment on a house, $25k from investments, but $35k from us personally saving for 1.5 years. You should still be happy with your life. It wouldn't be worth living miserably for 30 years just to retire early. My father passed away when I was 18. I'm about to turn 26, and left me a large inheritance set up in a trust fund. The majority of the funds are diversified in low-risk investments and a small percentage is in high-risk investments with investors at JP Morgan. I receive a set monthly distribution for the majority of my expenses, and the trust will cover certain more expensive living costs. I receive a very good amount every month, but my trust generates more money each year than what I'm given in my monthly distributions. So my yearly expenses don't really decrease the value of my trust. When I turn 30 I'm granted access to 1/3 RD of my inheritance. At 35, 2/3 RDs, and at 40 I'm given access to the remaining inheritance. I most likely will keep the money in investments when I turn 30, but will pull some out as needed to start a business. I realize I'm very fortunate and am thankful every day that my father worked his butt off to give me what he did. I'm also lucky that my father was smart enough to set the trust up like he did, because I surely would have blown through a large amount of the trust when I was younger. I'd still give it all back in a heartbeat if it meant getting my dad back though. Frick cancer. I won a sizable lottery jackpot with a friend. My share was mid-single digits in the millions. I quit working and budgeted $100k yearly salary. I pay myself $25k every 3 months. for the next 40 years, as well as bought a new house and a vacation house. With no mortgage and just naturally not being overly spendy, that salary is plenty for me and my kid. My great-grandfather was a wealthy man with a lot of cash and estate. Thought that the inheritance would be squandered by his 11 kids. Only 9 were alive at the time of his death. He set up a trust with very complex language that would pay out some amount of money every year and every milestone. That is, when someone got married or had a child, or a grandkid turned 18, etc. Much of the land and property is still held by various parts of our family. Even 3 generations down I got about $6k cash when I turned 18. My dad still gets a lump sum every year. It's not much, but although I've never seen him, we only have one painting of him and his wife, we remember him. The painting part of this post made the longevity of his money really hit you. Not photo, a painting. My dad and I set up investments for my brothers and my inheritance. He doesn't even know how much we have coming available to us right now. It's not stupidly huge, not like 40-50 mil, but it's definitely sizable. We both live off of our salaries. I make around 60, and he's around 75/ish, and live modestly. My goal is to retire early, not spend it now. Could I drive around in a Porsche and buy a house? Yup, but I'd rather retire 20 years early. We're both big gamers, so the only really nice thing we both have is a TV, and he has a gaming rig. It's funny, I started measuring expensive purchases in time till retirement and it's really changed the way I look at things. Like I could buy a Porsche or retire 2 years sooner. Retirement wins out every time. I inherited over $2 million at 20. At that point my last parent had passed. I paid off my college tuition and used some it for groceries bills until I found employment post-grad. The only serious purchase I made was a new car. I keep a salary's worth of cash liquid but the rest is invested. I make enough money now so I can pay all my necessities. Rent, bills, gas, food and such. Making it last isn't hard. I don't find a desire to spend it on frivolous things and I don't really tell anyone about it. I plan on putting it in a trust, getting a prenup when I get married. Also, my parents were very frugal so I think that has been instilled in me from a young age. I also think it would be so disrespectful to my parents if I squandered all the money they worked hard for away. If I lost all of it I wouldn't have a backup plan. I have very little family to go to for support. With all that I still max out my personal IRA every year and contribute to my 401k. As I get older I will probably dip into it for a deposit on a house, another car, repairs, etc. Even though I have assets, my money is still subject to the ups and downs of the market and requires a crap ton of paperwork and taxes. I do plan on trying to retire early so I have as much time as possible to be with my loved ones and enjoy my remaining time on this planet. I would give it all up to have my mom back though. Nothing can replace the love, comfort and reassurance I received from her. Your life is a wonderful tribute to her. Got $3 million saved from a business I started and sold. Sold everything. Moved to Central America for 6 months and lived out of a backpack. Learned to shed materialism and live simply. Moved back to USA, way out in the country, and now live a quiet homesteading life while allowing myself and the wife to spend $60k per year total including nice vacations and farm equipment. There is the old joke of a farmer winning the lottery. When asked what he would do with it, he said keep farming until the money is gone. Inherited $3 million. Paid off wife's student loans. Put the rest in aggressive growth funds. Do a withdrawal of about $20-20k per year for vacations or home improvements. Otherwise, continue to live below our household income and save aggressively. Goal is to retire at age 50 and pay for the kids' educations. A few years ago I found $20 in my pocket. Decided to fold it and put it in a spot in my wallet I rarely went into. It lasted quite some time before I remembered it was there and spent it immediately. If only I had hid it better. This is a great idea. By folding, you doubled it, and even after you take it out you will find it increases. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I sold a company for a few million in profit, invested all of it and only draw little each year. The most important thing I did was make sure no one friends or family knew I had the money. A lot of them know I sold the company, but I downplayed it a lot and continue to work, so they think I made almost nothing. Stops me from having to worry about people asking for money or expecting me to pay for things because I'm rich. This is really the best advice here. Once you are the rich guy, the amount of pressure to pick up dinner, loan money, etc. will be off the charts. Slightly unrelated, I once had nothing and found a double-headed coin that looked like a penny. I challenged people to gamble their pennies, and at one point I was up over $1, but my scam fell through when someone picked heads and I lost everything. I was in a bad accident when I was younger and the insurance money was invested by my parents on my behalf. I didn't find out about it until right before I turned 18. It is in an actively managed portfolio that is well distributed. My wife's father passed away when she was in high school. He left her a trust that pays out every 10 years. We bought our first house with it, a small fixer-upper. We have saved aggressively since then and opened many other accounts to further diversify. We also bought a small farm that is already paying well just from the rent payments. Our plan is to retire early to a small farm and live a lazy life and be able to do what we want when we want to. I just remembered that being moderately comfortable for a long time is much better than life being crazy super awesome for a short time. I'll never understand those people who are like, my 70k income isn't easy to live on, as they continue to buy things left and right. Freaking slow down and enjoy it a bit. My grandma gave me £550 a few days ago. It's down to £500 because I bought the new Assassin's Creed. But other than that, I've been totally irresponsible. Maybe think about it from this perspective. You spend 9-10% of all your money a few days after receiving it. Got a windfall of about $2 in stock from a startup. Does that count as great wealth these days? I certainly think so, but my bar might be low. This was around 2009. I was a single guy. I stopped working, put 30% into an S&P ETF, put the other 60% into 5 or 6 large cap companies I believed in, held on, for the most part, through ups and downs, and only withdrew about 5% per year, which I've lived off since then. I did not increase my lifestyle much. I still have the same car I had before the windfall, a 2004 Toyota. I spend more on travel and food, but overall I live a pretty basic middle class life. Except I have time to do whatever I want. And that's the greatest luxury of all. I write and record music. I learn about technology and fool around with it. I travel and get involved in volunteer projects. I watch movies with friends. It's a good life. I've enjoyed the past 8 years thoroughly, and now I have about $3 Money makes money, and having money saves you money. Life is not fair. I worked hard for what I got, but I know a lot of people that work just as hard and didn't get a windfall. I also pay only 15% taxes. It's ridiculous. At some point I helped my parents out by paying off their house. That money will come back to me when they pass on, so it doesn't change my long-term financial picture much. I got married and have a kid now, so I got a bigger house, but kept it within budget. I currently do work at a small non-profit, but it's more for the fun of being part of a project than for the money. This is my favorite response. Life is for living and enjoying, doing only the things you want to do. Inherited $500,000 from my dad. I honestly just act like I don't have it. It's a safety net I won't use until retirement. Helps that I have a decent job and a paid off house. Also, I'm famously cheap according to my friends. I have money but don't like to spend it. Quite the opposite. My sister-in-law got $260k from a trust fund and blew every penny. At 18 she got $60k and blew it in less than a year. Moved out the day she turned 18. Dropped out of high school. Got a new car. Paid her boyfriend's child support. Bought $130 leggings, etc. Then when she turned 21 she got $200k. She did the same thing as the first time. I think she owned 3 vehicles at one point. Now at the age of 28 she finally got her GED, makes around $25k a year, and criticizes her sister and I for buying a car we can't afford with a large down payment. I'm glad the people who have posted so far made good use of their money. Good on all of you. Obligatory, not me but a friend. Diversified investments. Bought a home first, One that was within his means and didn't break the bank. A solid base of low-risk blue-chip investments. And some money put aside for more speculative investments. Flyer stocks, businesses, etc. One of those paid out, so he's rolling. Doing great. Basically just treat it as a retirement fund and don't blow it all on cars, houses, and strippers. Find a good financial advisor and keep the future in mind. Blow it all on cars is the only part my mind read. I sold my startup for mid-9 figures. My share was worth low 8 figures at the time of sale. I knew I'd want to go at least a little crazy, so I set aside a small portion for that. The flashy car, expensive clothes, etc. The largest portion, roughly 60%, I put into a trust to safeguard it. The second largest portion went into a holdings company that would purchase and manage real estate for me and my family, as well as starting my next venture. The next venture failed, but I didn't lose too much. The following venture was very successful and was sold for 9 low figures. Not only has my money lasted, it has almost tripled in size by making smart investments and working hard since I sold the company that gave me the windfall. The key is to live well, but don't go crazy. I try to not spend more than 1.22% of my next worth per year. I came into a little over $10 million recently, and it seems like it will be extremely easy to make it last. I bought a new Cayman S and a house. The rest of the money is invested in a diverse portfolio of equities that bankers at JP Morgan manage for me. When I hear Redditors saying they would put the money in safe investments like government bond savings accounts, that seems insane to me. With this amount of money you can take on a ton of risk and still be very safe. It's me, a ton of risk. I got $300k from my dad's estate. Guess I profited off others' misfortune. The economy had crashed and I bought some houses that the price had dropped 100,000 from their all-time high. I rent them out now. Having financially responsible parents teaching you how to make money last. It's one thing to give people money, it's another to teach them how to use it. I married my loser boyfriend who I supported for the first couple of years we were together. My family wasn't fond of me falling for a musician, but he learned to code and proceeded to kick butt in his area of expertise. Retiring at 40 was an option, but we both enjoy our careers and we raise our kids like we're lower middle class so they don't blow the wealth we'll pass down. I'd bet their kids will be the ones to lose it, as is typical. Came into about 30k from a life insurance policy, paid off a rental property and used the rest to start spec home construction. I have now turned 20k into another 20k in just about 7 months and plan to continue and expand until I can quit my day job. Making the money last is easier for me when it belongs to the business and is immediately reinvested so it doesn't sit in the account long. The first best way to treat that new influx of money into your life is to immediately treat it like it's not your own. You find a fiduciary you trust now, far before you ever have that amount of money. When you do get that inheritance, a good first step is to treat it as if you didn't have it. Continue following your own fiduciary plan based on your income and how old you are. In other words, 1. Use your inheritance to build capital and investments now. Investments at first tend to being moderately risky when you are younger and reduce the risk over time for when you get to retirement age. It's a pretty good idea to max out your 401k and IRA with your income, and use the minimum required distribution to refund yourself for the income you've put into your 401k and IRA. So 2. Use the minimum required distribution to refund yourself from maxing out your 401k and IRA investments from your own income. Finally, having an economic safety net is a great way to keep yourself stable if you find yourself out of a job. Start figuring out your monthly spending habits, then create a 2-4 month job loss plan, which is how much money you would need to survive with your bills, food, and other minor expenses, until you get to new job. So 3. Once you've maxed out your 401k and IRA for the year, take out a certain amount from your inheritance and start your emergency savings plan. Most important thing is to always have a job. If you're using your inheritance to fund a fun lifestyle, you will build a bad habit that will continue on until after you don't have the money anymore. Use the stability that the inheritance gives you to find better and better paying jobs in an area that you like, and use it to network with other people who make smart economic decisions. Also find a few people in the middle of the road who are as willing to have fun with their money as they are to have a foundational economic plan. 4. You won't have good habits at first, so start hanging around those who do have good habits but also have a human soul. Do not use your inheritance to fund wacky schemes or ideas yourself. Especially not if you haven't spoken to several people who know what they are doing when it comes to invention, new business owning, or other usually risky ideas. Let the risk be handled by your fiduciary and stabilize your life. If you care about your family, now is a really good time to realize that their expenses become your expenses. If it's reasonable to do so, help them pay down high interest credit cards, loans, and health expenses. You should be paying down your own credit card, high interest loans, and health expenses with your own income, because it builds a good habit of budgeting and saving regardless of how much money you have come into. I won a small lottery and still haven't spent the funds. Still sitting at my desk. How did I do it? Self-control. Prioritize my needs. The $140 cash is still sitting in my bank account. Inherited $500k at the tail end 2014 when I was young, stupid and drinking too much. I opened a brokerage account and went heavily short in oil futures. Made a bundle of money, got sober and now I just live off dividends. Inherited 2.5M in a combination of capital and liquid assets. The liquid stuff I used to pay off bills and loans, and the capital I hired someone to liquidate it. I lived like a king for 3 months and after that it went all to a consistent growth portfolio. I have a financial advisor manager who I pay to prevent any stupidity from happening. I feel like people who come into great wealth think they can manage it themselves but have not proven they can. Just be aware of your own personality and limitations and lead with the brain, not the heart. I got some crazy experiences and now I just work a regular person job and love my life. It's a blessing to know that one does not have to worry about certain things like retirement, so it allowed me to find a career I truly love and make a decent living. I only touch money from liquidated asset sales for fun and excitement but never the whole thing. So I don't feel I'm cheating myself. When I'm ready to buy a home, soon, I know which accounts I can use specifically for that reason. Have kids, education, etc. It's all just reasonable planning and taking the control away from impulses. Don't live off the principal, live off the interest. First thing I did was go find a financial planner, not somebody at the bank, like a legit one. Next thing is we spent some time going over my investment goals, which I needed to have considered beforehand, and what a realistic risk return profile was. Then he invested my money and I waited a couple years. Now I have a nice monthly income. Make low risk investments and simply pretend you don't have that money. Don't completely change your lifestyle to reflect a one-time inheritance as if it is a consistent increase in income. Well, for my wife and I, we both come from fairly well-off backgrounds. Our parents were both immigrants to our country and did well for themselves despite starting with nothing. Our families mainly keep their money in real estate, bank stocks and index funds. It's a really boring answer, but when it comes to these things, complex investments are probably detrimental in the long run. If you live within your means, you only need to do slightly better than inflation, which is really easy when you have a decent sum to start with. Although most of the wealth is still with our parents, I believe my wife and I both could already retire and live very modestly in our mid-30s if we don't decide to have kids. We definitely do not need to worry about saving for retirement. We both still work because she likes her job. I mainly do it because everyone would think less of me if I decided to quit my stable well-earning job and be a bum. I am wondering about how I may be able to secretly quit my job and pretend to be working while doing something dumb like making soap on Esty or something. I'll be found out super quickly when I suddenly can't qualify for those credit card travel mile offers my folks insist I join once every 6 months. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.